No, so you go up with them, minus our house, they're covering that, yeah. They're missing up. Come back.
All right, so we're back in open session and just one motion coming out of closed session, and that is to receive the information as presented. Moving for a second for that. Mr. Deegan, seconded by Councilor Donato. All in favor? It's carried. All right, so back to item number 4, public participation. Don't think we have any questions from the gallery. Were there any questions submitted electronically? Okay. All right, no presentations this evening. Any council inquiries? Councilor Sample.
Just a couple. Since we're into this warm weather, and I know we have odd snow times coming, but it's still, is there any way we can look at start road sweeping earlier this year than last year, since we don't have cars parked on the road right now, there's still a lot of restrictions?
Through your worship, we have had some requests from the public on that. Our RFP is out for street sweeping currently. It hasn't closed or been returned to us. So we couldn't start too early anyway, but there will be some more weather yet where we will get material spread on the streets again and everything. We do use that 92% sand to 8% salt mixture, so there's more sand than salt.
Do you know when the RFP closes?
Closing in the next few weeks, and operations is putting out a phenomenal amount of RFPs lately, so that one is one of the ones that's been out for a couple of weeks now. So.
Okay. Thank you. I haven't been out on Franklin Street, but I was told that there's no speed limit signs on Franklin Street. They're complaining about high rates of speeds on there. I know it's not going to deter people from speeding, but I can't recall if there is any on that street or not for speed limit signs or anything. So just is there an observation?
For your worship, we have them on streets that directly access off of either 89 highway or 10, 11, 124, that sort of thing. We have the 40 signs set up there, so and we do have that 40 all through town. So we don't have them on individual streets with a 40, but on the incoming signs off any other street, we do have those signs posted.
Okay. Sure. Put one up, if possible. I'm not saying it's just that it's not just one complaint that I got a number of complaints on Franklin streets about no sign and speeding, and it's a very straight road. So
through your worship, we haven't had any of those. If they could call in and put it through the complaint form, that'd be great, because then we can track it through that program and everything else.
no.
A bit of a pause, because I've had those complaints even every time I go down that way. Is it possible to put up one of our speed reporting signs on Franklin, so we actually do know the speed that travels down that road? And because it's been consistent for years and years and years that there's speeding on that road. But we have no data other than perception. And it may or may not be, I don't know, but at least that way we'll have data. And it's good both for the police and for us, as well as for the residents, to know whether there is speeding or not on that street.
Through your worship, I'd have to check the historical files. I don't recall any time recently that one's been down there. We do have the new signboard that was part of this year's budget. We do have that in, getting the program now. We do have 2 of them that are capable of just being mounted straight to street lights or poles or whatever else. We don't have to put a 4x4 post in or whatnot, so.
So if we can get one of them down there, to get some data on that, that'd be really excellent. And like I said, both for the residents as well as for the police and for ourselves, because if that is a speed zone, then it would assist in informing the police as well as.
Yeah, there's just been a lot of houses change hands in that area, and there's a lot more kids on the street than there was. So
I don't think we have it.
I don't think we have.
We've never had one down there.
But I think that's a good idea, even because it's gonna flash in front of you that you're doing 60, but meanwhile your speed is supposed to be 40, you know what I mean? So not necessarily a sign up with a track, that's like deterrent.
Through your worship, we can look at that in the next rotation, switching that one in instead. We do have them set up for a certain time period. Not exactly sure how long we have to go before rotation, but we can always look at that, sure.
Through the mayor, so one of the things that we didn't incorporate in our assessment on traffic calming report was, as Jim noted, we have very specified areas where we have a speed sign. However, council would like us to review as part of the 2025 budget, what that would require with respect to the number of signs and the costs, to put 40 everywhere. We can certainly incorporate that as an opportunity. Additionally, I think one of the reasons why you don't put a lot of signs is an aesthetic for one reason, and also sometimes they're an impediment to, if they're too close to the sidewalk or too close to someone's driveway entrance. But to the point of Councillor Sample, if people aren't aware that we dropped it from 50 to 40 and they're not respecting that, this might be a solution. So we'll certainly evaluate that. And the other thing too is we could do one-offs in certain areas, if it aligns with the data from the DDRS, that there is excessive speeding, to your points. We're hoping that the OPP is also, as we provide direct access, using the tool to identify where there's actually speed issues as well.
Okay, please. Just, can we, due to the recent, cyber attack, solid?
So, are we talking about Hamilton?
Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, through the mayor, so we are, I think, fairly diligent in the approaches that we take. We actually participate through our IT with the county, and there's been a lot of investment made in cybersecurity. We also, as you know, have double authentication. I don't want to go into everything that we have, but the layers that we actually practice are key to ensuring that the risk is minimized or at least protected. So when we ask people, and we think it's a little bit frustrating, challenging, process driven, it's for a reason. And I think the examples of municipalities that unfortunately experience what happens when those protocols aren't adhered to is not only costly, but it's devastating to your ability to react at the service. So yes, we have done, you as council have had training, and we participate on a regular basis through our staff teams in engaging with the professionals in that industry, as do the county staff, to make sure that we are resilient.
Question was in regards a little bit to bylaw and because for maybe an answer. Are we, do we bylaw in the new Fieldgate subdivision as well? Especially during the winter for parked vehicles and the way vehicles are parked?
So at the moment, we are providing winter control parking, so the overnight parking for winter maintenance, because we are maintaining the roads for the winter months. That's about the extent we can enforce at the moment, because we have not assumed subdivision.
Okay, so because we're doing winter maintenance parking, control there, when vehicles are parked onto the back end, onto the road where the plow has to come through, do we take it those vehicles?
If the vehicle is on the road, yes.
Not totally, just the rear end portion, say, from part of the trunk or whatever, back onto the road.
Yes.
I noticed, because I had to pick up a person in the townhouses, right behind the liquor store, Dollarama area, that there were quite a few vehicles partially on the road. It's not the first time, every time I go down that way to pick up that person, that seems to happen. It's because of the fact that you can park their vehicle from the garage to the sidewalk, and then from the sidewalk to the road, they're basically partially on it. So that's why I'm asking this question. Maybe those residents need to be informed that, or they're ticketed for that.
Sorry. Yes, for your worship, we do have, of course, the parking enforcement officer cannot go door to door overnight. But if the vehicles remain in that place during the day while we have our
by officers in communication. They do go out, they knock on doors and advise them what's permitted and what's not.
Okay, so we,
Oftentimes ticketing, even though it's at $40, it's still not an insurance.
I almost agree with you.
And through the mayor, additionally, we did, at council's request, did a social media information campaign on how to park with literal examples of what's permitted with respect to how you can park yes, how you can park no. And, you know, there are certain creative alignments that actually you can consider that are in compliance, and there's others that aren't. So hopefully those visuals will be guiding some decisions for some that want to avoid.
I know we talk about parking in the garage and parking on the driveway, 2 vehicles, the province has mandated to us. Not this area.
Just to piggyback on the speed signs, Jim, I just wanted to make sure that staff were aware on Jane Street. I noticed that the speed sign is down. And I believe one of the no parking signs closest to the corner is also down. I'm not sure if staff was aware.
Okay, through your worship, I was by there today, and obviously I didn't notice that, but I'll double check.
That's for sure. Just really quickly, I don't think we can answer this yet. In regard to Fiddle Parks. Construction or. With regard to the parks. Do we know the timeline yet, or what's going on with Fiddle Park and when? Yeah, or no?
So through the mayor, we have provided council the capital schedule, what was actually a 2024 undertaking. One of the projects that is a go is the hard surfacing of the pavilion. We had committed that will be done in time for the park, so that they can use that. There are other components of that project yet. It started 2024, but most likely fall. And so Canada Day is not disrupted this year, site works. And then if there's other things that within those capital schedules going forward that potentially need to be maybe refreshed because of our changing climate, we want to make sure that we're not spending money that doesn't make sense. One example is you don't want to put in a refrigerated skating pad at a cost of about $2 million. Without acknowledging that we are experiencing significant fluctuations, and we want to make sure that even those that have these paths currently are not losing operating, because if we're only open 6 to 12 days or even 20 a year, is that really a good use of money? So that's a 2025, but obviously we want to bring that back. But there will be some work in 2024. And we will also apply for some grants to help expedite some projects, maybe the playground, but that's all contingent upon grant funding.
Yeah, okay.
So there will be work done.
Yeah, no, I just, the concern is Canada Day.
Yeah, there's no
So there's nothing-
disruption,
nothing
no
Canada Day.
disruption to Canada Day.
Great, thanks. Sure. All right, so we'll move on to reports. The first report is from our municipal engineer regarding sewage capacity allocation. Where is Steve?
Good evening, everyone. So I'll try and not bore everyone with the engineering details, and it is a fairly thick report. There was an engineering report appended to the council report, but only adjusted to the council report unless there's any specific questions from council that needs clarity. So here this evening, first of all, to have council basically receive the updated sewage capacity allocation report. We are recommending servicing reserves be put in place of 55 cubic meters a day for ICI development in stage 1, excuse me, in stage 2 areas, as well as 72 cubic meters a day for residential and mixed use infill and intensification, also in stage 1 and stage 2 areas. I do just want to be clear to council that this isn't the application of those servicing amounts. This is just us recommending those holds, those sort of reserves be put in place. But ultimately, that would be council's decision as each of those applications come forward in front of you. As we move forward. Just to give a little bit of background, because I know I've been in front of council a few times with allocation reports, and that we have a very limited amount of allocation. So in late 2023, council did ask that we come forward with a 2024 report summarizing the 2023 flows. We've gone through the same analysis as we have for several years now of gathering all that information from your operations through Aqua as well as from town staff. We gather that information and run through the analysis. The 3-year average this year went up to 2711 cubic meters per day, which means a growth in the allocated amount, the used amount, but it does make sense based on the additional homes that have been added to the system over the last year. And that was an increase from 2,674 cubic meter average in 2023. What we've done is we've moved forward with the same basic principle of reviewing that allocation, and then maybe we'll just bring council's attention to probably the easiest way to look at it is appendix or the appendice to the engineering report, which is appendix 2 of this report. Would look like this one here, guys, for the ease of looking at things. So on that, you can see that total wastewater capacity is 3,420 for the existing treatment plant. As I said, the 30-year average 2,711. That would leave a remaining wastewater capacity of 709 cubic meters. There are contingencies associated with same year occupations that we build into it. There's also private septic systems within the town, which if they were to fail, we do still need the capacity for those. And there's also a stabilization of flows contingency, which we put in there. Basically just deal with things like as schools continue to grow, we can't obviously change those capacities. And it also deals with the difference between an average and an actual flow each year. So that builds us some contingency there for that. So after that, we would have 326 cubic meters a day. And then ultimately there is already the committed capacities that have been put in place, which leaves us with approximately 144 cubic meters of available capacity this year. Now, when I was in front of council last year, that number was presented as approximately 60 cubic meters. And just so council's aware, one of the major contributing factors to it this year, as I said, is we are always trying to account for homes that have not been occupied yet or have been partially occupied through the year. Maybe folks have moved in July, so we're trying to do our best guesstimate as to how much of their capacity or flow is in those numbers. So we've now been able to actually close in on those numbers. To be fair, council will also see each year we carry just a slightly higher, we carry the highest per cubic meter amount in the last 5 years versus the actual of each year, which gives us a slight little buffer as well. So this year with so many move-ins, so many homes that have actually been occupied for the entire year, we were able to do a rebalancing of that, and that's what gives us the 140 cubic meters. So moving back to sort of the council report, we followed the exact same process that was established last year, which was setting up this allocation demand matrix. The purpose of that matrix is really there are so many demands or so many needs for the system, as council is already aware. I believe it is noted in the report here, but there's I think it's 500 current demands or 535 units. Which is significantly above what the existing system is able to handle. So we have gone through that ADM or allocation demand matrix. We've looked at which applications have moved their way through the planning process and development readiness. We've looked at the council priorities and pillars as we did last year. And we looked at the availability of site servicing and closeness to connection. So that brought forward 11, I guess what we refer to as highest scoring of priority projects. Under the stage 1 and stage 2 ICI, and I'm on page 4 of the council report. That would be 716, 722 Main Street East, CPH Commercial, Field Gate Block 217, 112 Luxon Way, 115 Luxon Way, 144 Luxon Way, and 152 Luxon Way, and the Northland Precast, which is also Luxon Way, as part of that scoring criteria. It also brought forward the downtown intensification, which is always something that we've indicated is something the council should strive towards and continue to balance for. 12401 Sound Street is part of the residential, and the Fieldgate medium high density residential block as well. So council will see between those two, the 55 and the 72, that totals approximately 127, so slightly less than 144, but again, those were the priority projects that hit the criteria. And as I said, council will still have an opportunity as each of those projects come forward during site plan approval or during subdivision approval to actually allocate that amount. So, yeah, from a financial impact perspective, it does allow some more development to move forward, although we are very tight, as council already is aware. That will provide some development charges revenue as the water pollution control plan continues through design, which is ongoing, and it should wrap up later this spring. I'll stop talking because I know the engineering can get boring and open it up to council.
Sure.
Quick question, appendix, if you go back to appendix 2 for a second. The capacity is showing as a deficit of 413. So that's how much we are behind the 8 ball on this.
No, so just to be clear,
Can you explain that?
yeah, you've got sort of been through your worship. So the way this table is set up is the amount that has actually been already allocated by council through recommendations from staff would be the first table there that leaves 144, the green one open. The red actually shows what staff is aware of demands for the system. So either applications that are already in process, different ones that we're aware of through the planning process. So the 413 shows the deficit of demand towards the system and why the water pollution control plan expansion or upgrade work is required. So, but has not been allocated yet. That's just an estimate of those demands.
Thanks. That's what I know.
On the stage 1, stage 2 ICI, the Luxon Way, we're on 112 and 152. How soon are those proceeding ahead? I mean, they've seen those empty fields out there for an awful long time.
Yeah, and from our perspective, those are ones that are planning applications in process. It is a fully serviced development application, so that's why those score so well on that plan. Again, it is a fairly small contributing amount to those, and if that's something that council chooses not to allocate when that comes forward, but we do still say those are scored very high.
And how much does that precast uses of water that doesn't contribute to sewage?
Paul, I don't know, do you know?
I'm no expert on this, so that's why I'm asking these questions.
Through your worship, this company's come up with like a revolutionary way to go about their concrete business. They're gonna be using recycled water, not straight out of the system, so.
So they're not using any much water from our system, nor are they putting any back into our system.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And they are something that's in progress, because I heard about this precast for at least the last 5-6 years now, and I haven't seen any, like I said, in those fields for the last 15 years.
Three Your Worship, yes, in the last year, they've been active, year and a half with us, so.
Okay, one final question is CHP. Commercial, I'm not good with.
That's the, I believe that's the choice properties, that's the short form of choice
Right,
properties. Like, beside that, no sense.
which hasn't gone ahead for the last 15 years either.
And they had to speak to that one, it was an environmental,
Roadblock there.
there was an environmental roadblock which has now been overcome and they are.
Good. Anybody actually have before I pass away?
Well, to the mayor, I think the growth of developer has been reiterated to those that potentially were looking in the past and maybe not proceeding, that the investment is actually beneficial, that the market is there to support them, and in addition to the environmental, there was always, I guess, reservations that was the small population that we have on paper able to support the viability of these businesses. Not fully factored in ever was the transient traffic that passes through this community at two major intersections, and I think that based on what we're hearing from the businesses that are in the Fieldgate development commercial, they're doing very well, and those two markets have actually supported their businesses. So when one business is successful, those that want to be part of a successful community tend to gravitate towards you. So I think that there's probably more interest than we can support from the commercial partners in land restrictions, but those lands that are open for development, there's certainly, I guess, an energy to move forward. So you will be around it.
Yeah.
They've known for Northwest how busy we have traffic up here. And we saw their plans quite a while ago for that whole enterprise in there. That they were to go forward. I agree they ran into a bit of a roadblock with the environmental, but they had options even back then to correct that situation. They just chose to sit back maybe and let somebody else do the hard work to get things ready for it.
So the chicken and the egg are merging, and we'll have a chicken and.
All right, any other questions for Steve?
Oh. Just for public consumption as well as for ourselves. How far ahead are we now with the engineering on the wastewater plant?
So design is through your worship, but design is ongoing. We have a consultation ministry on it and are hoping to wrap up, as I said, later this spring. Moving well that way, and we'll be reporting from council in the near future with a revised costing or updated costing as we move through that process. So 33% design was submitted, 66 is very close, and aiming to have that wrapped up before.
Have you found a way into the course? Well, yeah.
I guess through you, your worship, we are assisting staff and pulling together funding applications for the most recent opportunity that's out there. This aligns well with that funding opportunity, but again, no one knows until we put those applications in, and those are due mid-April, and we'll have that application in with council.
Any opportunities at the federal level? They seem to be giving some municipalities funding as well.
Yeah, this one is interlinked with federal funding, as it has been similar in the past, and yeah, hopeful, this one does align very well with the hot buttons of the funding, but again, until those submissions in, you know.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll just piggyback through the mayor. So Stephen mentioned that we're applying for the one fund, which is up to 200 million for 3 years. So we will apply for the max, which is 35 million. Council had made a motion and followed up with both ministers to request meetings with regard to being allocated a housing target to be eligible to apply to the bigger fund, 1.2 million. Through the clerk, we've actually made 2 requests and had no response from our meeting, request passed. That's important for us to actually have that eligibility, but each council informed of that. As the design and engineering wrapped up at the same time, what we were doing with staff and council was provided what we call the briefing note that we provided back to developers, which was a summary of the discussions we've had to date. What we'd like in terms of information back from them to know whether they'd be interested, not interested, in terms of funding arrangements, scenarios that would include whether or not we receive funding, whether it's provincial or federal. And if we did not, like what does that mean primarily for those lands that are outside the municipal boundary, currently relying on the OP, the visual plan and the municipal comprehensive review or MCR to be finalized. And the overall debt capacity of the town, reserves and DCs all factored into that. We've made it clear to staff through council's awareness as well and approvals that our ability to finance this a la carte is non-existent, that the debt load of the town prohibits that from being considered. And in the absence of those kinds of funding partnerships materializing, one of the options would be to maintain status quo, which would require us to update the plant on what we had originally estimated to be a $13 to $15 million solution for existing development only. The list that we've just formalized with you in terms of process would be removed from that stringent condition, but that would mean we're done. We're literally done, and there would be no more development. So anybody on that list after that would not proceed. Because what we think we've also made clear, we hope, is that piecemeal approach to the land plant expansion makes no strategic sense. There's no point spending $15 million then to go back and try to accommodate maybe 500 residential or condo commercial, because we're done. So we're gonna continue on that process. We've asked the development community to give us a response by date X. I told some developers that our expectation with the timing of this one grant would be, we would be back to council likely in September with some kind of overall funding strategy, because we will not as staff issue the RFP for the design, for the build, until we have council's approval on a funding strategy. So that's really where we're sitting. There's not gonna be a lot happening over the next 3 months, but if there anything does materialize, and we're hoping that we are successful with this one grant, and then we know in terms of the process, if you do not check all the boxes in terms of eligibility, you're out. So if you're out, you're probably be notified fairly quickly, and if you're in, you're probably gonna get requests for additional information to allow that process to go forward.
But as Steve said, I mean, at least on first blush, we check all of the boxes, so, yeah, I would be very surprised if we're not successful this time. But as you say, we can't count that money in the till until here. Sure. Oh, sorry,
Question, to Denise and Jennifer, the the letters and requests for a meeting. Makes sense to send a follow-up, hey guys, send you an email.
I think the next follow-up will be to our provincial member.
Okay. All federal.
Right. It's a process like that portion of what we're looking for is needing to give us the housing target. So that issue specifically is a provincial issue, but. All right, well, good news report. So. I don't get it. Thank you. Kind of had a your stuff coming in here. Any further questions for Steve? No, okay. So the motion is to receive the report and to establish the following service reserves, 55 cubic meter per day reserved for ICI developments in stage 1 and 2 areas. Steve listed in the report, as well as the 72 cubic meter per day reserved for the residential and mixed use infill and intensification in stages 1 and 2, as well as listed in the report. And that allocation of servicing capacity will be considered at the time of development approval for those projects that were identified in the report. I have a mover and seconder for that, Councilor Charity, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hall. Favor? It's carried. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, the next report is from our planner regarding request for extension of draft approval to draft plan of subdivision as well as draft approval of plan of condominium at 600 Main Street East, which is the Centerville Homes development. And Steve Weaver is joining us remotely. How are you, Steve?
I'm great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, good evening, Mayor Mills and members of council. I've asked Jenna Wenzel from our team who assisted with writing this report has joined as well. You'll be familiar with this report because there have been a number of previous extensions to the draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium approval for this development previously for 600 Main Street East, which is Centerville Homes and also known as Ravine's Edge. I had hoped that this report or the next report that council considers for this development would be the final approval recommendation. We are very close to that. There's a couple of just really final details that we're working through with Centerville to get that subdivision agreement executed on their part so that it can be signed by the town as well. And they've just requested a bit of extra time to finish their review of the final agreement and deliver the security and so forth for that agreement. There's some further details outlined in my report. I won't go through them all. I think you're familiar with the development and the location. It is under pre-servicing right now. So they have completed the underground, much of the underground servicing work for the development. In fact, I think as recently as this week, they're working on some water main work. That's under a pre-servicing agreement that was executed previously. And the subdivision agreement, there's one final detail that the developer has requested some additional consideration of. Specifically, there's a municipal sanitary sewer that runs through this property. And it didn't need to be upsized for this development specifically, but does need to be upsized for longer term servicing needs throughout the town. And the developer went and did that work and had provided a cost estimate in advance. And because it's a development charge related project, we have put an amount in the subdivision agreement that would be a credit on Centerville's development charges. And during the project, they encountered some complications in doing that sanitary sewer upsizing. There were some wet conditions and some substandard fill. And so they are requesting consideration of increasing that number of development charges eligible funding for that. We've been meeting and corresponding back and forth with Centerville on that specific issue. And we're awaiting some additional information from them before we can make a recommendation to council on that specific number. And so there will be a further report on that if we're supportive of changing that number. But in the meantime, everything else has advanced more slowly than perhaps hoped, but nevertheless, pre-servicing is underway. And they are expecting to initiate the roads and building permits over the summer. And they've submitted all of the siting plans for the various units and established the home models. And we've done the zoning compliance check and also are looking at individual lot grading and servicing details as well. The requested extension would just be for 1 year. It really doesn't need that much time, but it's normal to do a 1 year extension just to give some breathing room for the remaining steps to finalize the subdivision agreement. And so this extension request is to extend the draft plan approvals till April 2nd of 2025 from the current expiry of April 2nd, 2024. I will note that the zoning is all in place for this development too. There were prior council approvals on the zoning bylaw amendments for this development. And we have also completed, as mentioned, the subdivision agreement, and the draft subdivision plan has been surveyed and is ready for registration upon council's approval of the final approval recommendation. So there will be one more report that comes back to council, not only related to this cost issue with the sanitary sewer upsizing, but also to recommend final approval of the development before the M plan can be registered. I guess the final point I'll make is just that this is very similar to the Scone development on the west side of town along the former rail bed. And as with that development, the plan of condominium can't be finalized until the units are closer to fully built. So there may need to be a further extension of just the condominium approval. But the subdivision approval is the one that establishes the majority of the development requirements as it relates to servicing and the creation of the blocks and the roads and services and so forth. So we've outlined the related council strategic priorities, and this has obviously been reviewed with engineering as well. And with that, I'll pause there if there are any questions for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Questions? That's what you.
Thanks for the report, Steve, appreciate it. I've got to admit, I'm a little perturbed that this is the third time, or fourth time, third since I've been at this table, asking for an extension. And we said last year, we did not want to see them come back to this table. I'm happy to see work has been started, but I'm really questioning the sincerity of this builder to move things forward.
It's a valid concern and question, and why we have these 1-year extensions instead of a longer one. The purpose of having expiries on these is if there's no effort to move things along at all, we would really be concerned and not recommending any further extensions. Although it's moving slower, there's never been any lulls in the effort to move this along. I think there's a number of contributing factors, and they're outlined here, and I can't speak to all of the factors that are solely on the developer side. I do know that it's a very challenging site, and they've encountered some unexpected things in the ground, as they were nothing serious, no contamination or anything like that, just wet conditions and some challenges during construction. And then, of course, we had the time during the pandemic, which caused some delays. And this developer took over the site after the original owner had it for 2 years without actually advancing anything. So those things all together have led us to where we are now. The positive is that, if 58 units can be built in the next 12 months or so, that's some housing starts picking up where kind of Fieldgate has left off, and it maintains a bit of supply as we go along, versus many other developments rely on bigger picture servicing improvements that will take longer.
If I could follow up, then the question that I would have for you, is there a possibility maybe to light a fire under these guys of giving them a shorter extension rather than a full year? You're saying that that doesn't necessarily need the full year, that's just giving them an extra buffer. Well, we're concerned about how the pace of this is going, so if we give them a shorter timeline, would that help convince them to move a little faster?
I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure under the act, the least we could extend it is a year. Like, that's kind of the minimum, it's by a year. And the most being 3 years.
I think we had got that last year too, and I understand what you're saying, because I think almost without exception, all of us sort of made a point, at least in principle last year, that would be the last extension. That said, I mean, from my perspective at least, I think they have been getting quite a bit done within the last little while. If we were at a position tonight where nothing had progressed and they were in the same positions they were last year, I don't think I would be too eager to grant an extension, but seeing the activity that has taken place on that site, and there's obviously been significant strides made. So I think at this point, that not to extend and allow them to finish is probably more.
That's, like I said, it's just a frustration
Yeah.
and it's, I don't necessarily want to stop progress, especially because the progress is there. We are seeing the advancements, so the unfair to stop this.
Also, the difference between last year and this year is the report that Steve Burnett presented tonight. So the scarcity of the application, we've had a development not using it under the lease or use it scenario, has been actually, I guess, less problematic because of what was actually addressed tonight. So this is not stalling, for example, some of those developments that are ready to go. We understand that all of these units are sold, that there is significant interest in those purchasers getting occupancy at some point. We have, as Steve Weaver has noted, seen effort, and we have to at least empathize when, as we know in projects, when stuff sort of comes up that you weren't anticipating, that slows down your ability to. So I think as staff, we would not be recommending to you an additional extension, knowing the sentiment of council from last year. We didn't feel it was the right thing to do, the strategic thing to do, and made the most sense fiscally and economically, not only for the company, but. So we're confident that this is gonna get delivered. We're confident that we will have occupancy at some point with these units and hopefully a great introduction of new residents to our community.
So is it fair enough, sorry, is it fair enough to say that this is the last one, that there'll be no other one, period?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
There will be no-
Councilor Bernardo asked if we could indicate that there would be no further extensions, but I
Yes, okay.
think it's up to the council at the end of the 1-year term. I mean, if they do come back, it always has to come back here.
This will be us.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, what I guess the point I'm trying to make is, it's fair to say to them that council will more than likely say, that's it, you're done. You will not get another extension. Would that be fair?
I can certainly convey that on council's behalf, or if you prefer and want to make that, an official statement of council, it could go in the resolution. The only caution I would note is that technically they can't register the plan of condominium until the units are nearly built. And it's pretty common that a condominium approval would, just endure until they can get the declaration prepared and all those time consuming paperwork details get in place. It doesn't hold up, the construction of the units at all. It's just something that they themselves can't complete until certain progress has been made. So if you want to make that statement about the subdivision, I think that's reasonable as it relates to the condominium. I do see that, ideally by this time next year, they're pretty close to being able to finalize the condominium corporation and so forth. But if there's units that are still under construction, that could take further into 2025.
Just a question. If we were to not move forward or tell them it's not happening, they've already undertaken the work to do the main upgrades that we've required, we would be liable for that value banks. Whether they're incoming VCs or not, are they liable for those costs that incur?
Yeah, that's correct. Up to the amount, at least, that has been identified in the subdivision agreement. They could challenge us on the amount that it actually costs them, but there's been no stated agreement by the town to date to pay the actual cost that the developer incurred for that work.
Support extension based on the fact that the vast amount of work that's gone into the site, they are moving forward. I clearly understand the condominium piece that will probably have to have some form of extension based on parceling and what have you. So I think it's just a case of previous ownership. It's moved to these individuals. They're doing what they can at the speed that they can.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem sort of expressing that it's our expectation. I think that this will be the last one. I don't think I would want to, formally paint ourselves into a corner where we can't get out of, down the road and by including that kind of language in the actual resolution. But I do think we can express rather confidently that the will of council is that this needs to get done as quickly as possible.
And I think that's what I was trying to convey. I wasn't looking to put anything in as a solution. What I'd like to see is we express to them that the will, council wasn't happy with the extension, and, another extension is not likely to be forthcoming. That can be sort of expressed to them, and, with the fact that they're moving ahead, council is happy with that.
Understood.
Okay. Anything else? Councilor.
Sorry, Steve, thanks for the report. Did they give you a projected completion date for this? Like, are they saying if we run into no further problems and things move along with the extension, have they said, well, people will be living in this by date X?
Only that building permits, as soon as the final approval is in place, which should be this spring, that they've already made all the submissions to allow building permits to be issued. So all the units are selected, all the detailed siting drawings are complete. So I would expect those building permits to start issuing in June, worst case July, and each unit will take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. They are a smaller builder, so they may not be able to build, the number of units concurrently that say a Fieldgate or some of the other developers have. But they will move that along, I'm sure, as quickly as they can, because this is the step they've been trying to get to.
We'll likely see construction in this construction season, though.
Yes.
So just to follow up, hypothetically, then we're looking at the fall of 2026 for these things to be up. That gives them a good two years plus.
Yeah, I think it could take that long for all 58 to be built and occupied. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. It's probably a 2-year build is what we're anticipating.
Thank you. All right, so the recommendation in the report is to receive the report and the council approve the request for extension of the conditions of draft plan approval for the draft plan of subdivision, and the council approve the request for extension of the conditions of draft plan approval for the draft plan of condominium. So the second of that. Sample. Pastor Charity. Favor. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, next item is a report from our Director of Legislative Services clerk regarding the unauthorized area parking bylaw, front yard parking. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you. Through your worship, staff continue to review and update municipal bylaws in response to concerns and complaints regarding parking within front and side yards. A review of options to prohibit parking and implement fines has been completed. This report recommends a new unauthorized area parking bylaw for fines to be implemented. Staff have reviewed and continue to receive complaints regarding vehicles parking in their front or side yards. This type of violation is currently investigated under the town zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw has area specific measurements noted within the bullet points. That area page 2 in my report. The zoning bylaw currently does not have set fines or approved short form wording associated with it. In order to issue fines, the process of enforcement is issuing part 3, which is an automatic summons to court through the POA system. This process is time consuming, costly, and may take up to a year to resolve through the POA system if compliance is not obtained. Currently, the town's clean yards bylaw does not identify damage to front or side yards as a result of over vehicle parking. Staff recommend amending the Clean Earth bylaw to allow for proactive enforcement of property damage as a result of vehicle parking to ensure properties are kept in a clean, clear, aesthetically pleasing condition. The creation of a new parking bylaw infraction to prohibit parking in front of side yards would streamline our enforcement processes and allow municipal law enforcement officers to respond in a more efficient manner. Officers would have the ability to issue parking infraction notices instead of zoning notices in an effort to reduce property damage, address safety concerns, and maintain neighborhood aesthetics. The proposed bylaw would be enforced proactively by officers to ensure that vehicles are parked in permitted spaces. Research of other municipalities has determined that fines generally range between $40 and $100 per offense. The set fine being recommended is $100, which is the maximum fine permitted as a municipal act. It's important to note that the recommended set fine is to act as a deterrent in order to gain compliance and is not intended to be revenue generating. The proposed set fine would offset the town's direct costs associated with parking issues. And that the bylaw will be effective as of the date of receiving approval for the set fine and short form relief through the ministry. In between that time, staff will have the ability to provide a communication plan to support the implementation of the bylaw, including social media and printed material. That will also allow officers the opportunity to provide voluntary compliance, which will include door knocking, door to door, before issuing the tickets. Staff are recommending a virtual public engagement session with residents to obtain feedback and general information. Date of the virtual public engagement session is proposed to be held. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Councilor Sanders.
So you did answer one of my questions. So, due to the building types that we put into this town, we've put ourselves in a problem area because we are a commuter town. Because everybody needs this town to go to work. So obviously 2 to 3 cars are possible in an area. There's kids growing up in the area that have all got their licenses. And hence working in a different place than their parents outside of town. So I'm not sure that I don't. Pros and cons on both sides of it. We don't have, or I don't know of, auxiliary parking for additional cars when people are. It's fine when we have guests, that's easy peasy, because we get certain areas, that's ones and twosies, not through the whole area, but. You have families that are staying in the town because their kids can't afford houses yet. Have to build up an income and get a job secured. With the rate of interest rates, that's a deterrent for start stepping. So kids are gonna start staying at home longer. And hence, we have to find room for vehicles then. So I'm not sure how we're gonna do this. I do agree with it. I just wonder if there's another strategy we can go with, other than the fact of issuing tickets, other than the fact that I know stock yards, cars are tearing up grass, you're getting tire ruts. So we look at that and say that all has to be repaired under this type of work. I'm sure, I don't know how to handle that. Not sure. I kind of like to see a little bit more information come back to us on what it might look like they would be issuing tickets on. Because I know in a lot of areas in this town, they've put in additional walkways or paving stones to get that second car in there so you can have a third car across the boulevard. I'm not sure it falls in totally with all the restrictions. That type of, a lot of areas that don't have the front yard space. So came from the meters that are in there, if you know what I mean. I hope I'm explaining it good, probably not properly, but.
So I guess, is that probably the intention of having the public engagement process, and then, maybe some of that stuff can inform the draft that will come back here and we can.
That's correct, through your worship. So I can expand further in that the majority of the complaints are not from, they're from residents. However, these homes that have the excess parking are the homes that have rooms for rent or the Airbnbs, or those are the types of complaints associated.
So I get that, but then if we open the door where they can issue tickets and it's not a complaint driven process, then are we penalizing our people that are here 100% of the time? Me living here and paying taxes to do some of that kind of stuff. I get that's a very good point, and I agree with that. I know a lot of municipalities are saying no to Airbnbs, it's putting Airbnb taxes on them, and I know Sobel did it and all those places like that, so is that something we have to look at? And then turn for them, you know what I mean, because I get, and then if we're allowing, and we don't have to come back with, for them to put an apartment in anymore, do we? Or they have to come back and register that apartment with us? It's like purchase too, right?
Through your worship, so there are the larger municipalities are licensing those types of businesses, the Airbnbs, the Verbos. The closest municipality to Shelburne that is attempting to try that is Town of Bloom. Right now, what we have is some staffing resources that, if you license that, you have the staff that can look after and maintain that. And then in addition to, you had indicated there were already properties that have paved stones, have paved the front yard or concreted. That is not permitted either through the zoning bylaw, however, that is a reactive complaint, not proactive. So while you see those front yards that have been paved, hard in there, that's still not permitted.
But it has to be a complaint before anything's done.
So this is a report where staff initiated a response because of the complaints being received. Part of that consultative process will be obviously we share some of the photos of the aesthetic for people that live adjacent to you, feel like their value of the property has been diminished. It's a mess. There's traction of mud and other debris on sidewalks and other public spheres. But yet again, this is one of those issues where supporting the concerns of one group may negatively affect others, but this is why bylaws cannot be selectively enforced and they need to be universal in application. So as Jennifer noted, this is a very common solution to some of the challenges in many municipalities that prohibit parking in front lawns, but they also prohibit and will, as required, if you have done changes that are actually not compliant with the planning components of those bylaws, paid to whatever, they will be, there could be direction to remediate. And there's a reason why we don't want you parking and paving in front lawn. There are some ecological benefits to rain and runoff and all those other kinds of things. If there's anything but hard surfacing around, you can create ponding, storming issues and flooding. So there's reasons for that to be done. We also completely as staff understand, and council have reiterated it, but you need to park in your garage if you have a garage. When you purchase the property, you make some informed decisions regarding occupancy and the number of parking spots and what that land composition is encompassing. But to assume that you can modify all of those, I know maybe it may be inherently as a solution, you do it, but if there is some parameters for you to make an informed decision of the compatibility between the property and your needs. So as staff, we will certainly do what council wishes us to do, but we are not going to solve the 4-person, 5-person residency that have 2 parking spots. It's not going to be resolved in the absence of completely supporting a parking infrastructure that is paid by the public, and we don't have the land to do that. So this is why we know that this kind of approach is gonna make some people exceptionally happy and some people not so. And that's why we need your direction on where you'd like to go, because the staff, we're sort of caught in the middle between those persons who would like enforcement, and it's Jennifer's outline. There's enforcement with this bylaw, but this bylaw is silent, and the way to actually create the enforceability is to use this bylaw over here with an unauthorized parking and attach a set fine, because we've also recognized in the absence of a fine, deterrence is not as effective. And we maximize the set fine because we thought we should.
Yeah, and I think council's always sort of caught in the middle to a certain degree too, right? It's trying to balance competing interests, and I agree. Parking is a problem, and it's going to become an even bigger problem, as you said, as, you know, kids stay at home longer. And that's just, you know, a new reality. So I do think, you know, in tandem with this, we can continue to look at, you know, possible solutions to parking. I guess where I come down on it though, you know, even though we can look for solutions, I don't think a viable solution is allowed parking in front of lawns. Like, I just don't think that will raise any.
I agree with not parking in front lawns, but like, I'm a little confused that someone's not allowed to make aesthetic progress to their front lawn by putting in a walkway down to the sidewalk to get by the cars, you know what I mean? It's
I don't think you're not allowed to do that now. You can put a walkway down the side of your driveway to walk on the side of the car, and if you park on there, no one's gonna bother you unless your neighbors complain. But I do think that if you're gonna park your vehicle on your lawn beside my property, and you're gonna wreck up your lawn, because you're gonna drive it more
That's what I
like.
do agree, I do agree with the grass turning and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But if you read that, they're saying a half a meter from, like, I forget what the state staff was there. But some yards don't have that from a property line, you know what I mean, unless I'm misreading that.
well, those townhouses I was talking about earlier, evenings, maybe don't have that half a meter, but a lot of our houses do have that. And do have the little red.
These bills don't though, that's what I'm saying,
Well,
go across a lot of the other
but
places.
that's townhouses. Again, townhouses are the only ones that don't have that. But if you're looking at the majority, other than the townhouses, they do have that. Semis do have that, most do have that kind of room. So the majority do. And that's always been my complaint. You've heard it, you've been on council along with me that this province is making life miserable for us as municipality.
I get it.
Because parking in the garage, parking in the driveway has to be asked, garbage goes in the garage, car goes out on the road.
Well, and that's the thing, if you measure a car to fit in a garage that's been built, it doesn't fit. Unless you're driving a Focus, you're driving a little. You're driving an SUV and it's not fitting in the garage that's been built for that house.
So why don't we try this then from a process point of view? So the recommendation was, you know, for staff to sort of start to make some changes, have the public engagement, and then draft a draft bylaw. Why don't we have a report back to council after the public engagement, and instead of you guys going and trying to guess at drafting the draft bylaw, we can have a further discussion based on the comments that have come back. And then we can maybe give some clearer direction about what we want that draft bylaw to look like. Does that make a bit more sense?
Yeah, you know, you can put a lot more pictures. The picture,
I think something staff usually will think about as a tool is a survey. We may be able to do a quick survey as well on, we're looking at proposing this. We can provide some examples of backyard parking issues and sort of gauge even in advance of the community meeting, info meeting. Not a referendum type of thing, but just get some input on, maybe 1,000 people respond and we find out how much the importance to the community and what they'd like to see done. And then that would be embedded in the information to provide to council for you to make decisions or direct us.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making any final decisions.
yeah, but I just want to thank you, I know we're not making any decisions tonight, but I want the following steps that, very good, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, through your worship, I just wanted to clarify that The second paragraph of the resolution is amending the Jim Norris bylaw.
Yeah.
That's not included as part of the public engagement.
Yeah.
This will still allow the bylaw staff to address the muddy, rutted yards that attract mud everywhere.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, and I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. Through Clean Yards is proactive, that will allow staff to address that work, and the public engagement will focus in on the unauthorized area parking lot.
Good on that. Okay. All right, so we'll rejig the recommended motion slightly. So we'll receive the report and direct staff to amend the clean yard bylaw to incorporate the action of damaging the surface or appearance of the front yard as a result of vehicle parking. And the staff be directed to hold virtual public engagement session in April 2024, following which a further report will be brought back to council for consideration and discussion.
Yeah, just a question, can we like, ensure we're blasting this out ahead of time? To say we're having this information session so that everybody's kind of up to speed on it, because we're gonna get a lot of pushback. It's huge. My class
It's not just that's a social. We're blasting this out, it's not just like social, because I've had a lot of, we'll say older residents complain because they don't do social.
And we got the demo truck and seats.
We do, like some of them aren't even looking at the newspaper either, maybe we can have some kind of door hanger or something that gets to the residents.
We have a building, they'll try to piggyback on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we will, but it is.
Yeah.
Staffing resources to do door to door.
No, I understood, I'm just trying to think, how do we get as much of this out as possible?
Make sure
This is something that
TVs
we
are
want.
updated.
Filling probably.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so I have a mover and seconder for that. Councilman Shardy. Second by Councilman Deegan. All in favor? Carried. Item number 4 was a notice of motion that Councilor Wagner brought at the last meeting. Because she's not here tonight, she's asked that we defer that to the next meeting. So push that over. And that takes us to item 5, which is a flag raising request for the Sikh flag. Motion there is to receive the request and authorize the flag raising from April 3rd to the 10th. That request was in the agenda to proceed with the required time frame. So we're looking for a seconder with that, Bernardo, second by Councilman Shardy. All in favor? Carried. Right. Any notices of motion for this evening? Communications. Councilor Bernardo.
Number 8, municipality of Tweed regarding the importance of natural gas. Being continued, because currently we do not have enough electricity in the province, and we're continuing to grow houses as well as electric cars. Are going to have a shortage as it is to even the amount of electricity. So they're talking about more natural gas for both housing as well as potential gas fired electricity plants being required to produce electricity. And I'd like to support their motion for that. That is immediately out of this province to continue to push for that.
Okay, so seconder for motion support on that one. Councilor Chigan. Favor? Carried.
If I can remember, our number 10 should be put out. It's the OPP regarding the fraud, and I wonder if we can blast that out to the public as well. They're having an information session, their boss, fraud. And a lot of our seniors are being taken in. I think this is something that should be pushed out. They're having this sort of forgot what they put on there. Would be great for me. Some kind of
It's fraud prevention. That,
what?
fraud prevention month.
It's not only fraud prevention month, but they're also doing a black, not a month there, but
Usually
sort of like a Q&A thing that you can watch. Yeah,
A live chat.
a live chat on X and Facebook, that's what I was thinking. So I know seniors will not all be on X or Facebook, but there are people that are, and there's an opportunity for them to be on there and watch. So I'd like to see that put out if possible to the public.
So we do share most of the OPP information that has a public facing component to it already on our social. We don't traditionally do OPP information on the town page because they actually do their own advertising, but I can check with my colleague if we have space on the town page to do a little more.
Yeah, it's just that, again, a lot of people may not necessarily pay attention to the OPP.
Are we getting for other digital signs?
I want to pull item number 7, which was the second of 2 resolutions from our colleagues in Amaranth. So this one relates to essentially postponing the advancement on the proposed Highway 413 and redirecting the estimated $8 million for that highway, or sorry, 8 billion, yes. Yeah, 8 million, it's not gonna go far. But redirecting the $8 billion for that planned project into municipal infrastructure and housing construction initiatives. So something we talked about this meeting, we talked about the last number of meetings, that smaller municipalities need help when it comes to infrastructure. In my mind, that's probably a better use of those dollars than expanded highways. I would like to support that one, it's a seconder. As a charity. All in favor?
Maybe you can have to figure all seven stalls. Yeah, I would try this option.
It's private. Anything else?
Technically not correspondence, but invite for the heart touching spirits event on the 4th of May. In the afternoon at Trinity United, and go get a burger. That's a burger and burn start March 1st, when it runs till April 30th. Shameless plug.
All right, if that's it, I'll ask for a motion to receive the remaining items for information. Sample. By Councilor Beacon, all in favor? It's carried. All right, we already did closed sessions, so we'll move in second to the floor with the permit bylaw by Donato, seconded by Sherry. All in favor? Carried. A motion adjourned. Donato and Beacon. All in favor? Carried. All right. Not quite. But
Pretty good. I know.